Well, I, on the other hand, I haven't gotten stuck, but okay. So I've only been playing Dark Souls 3. That's it. The stuff that so let me just try to go through these in order. So I went into the Smoldering Lake, which is without question one of my least favorite areas in the game. So, you know, of course you get into the beginning of it and you have that what's it called? The giant thing that shoots arrows at you. Gosh, why can I?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's like it's on the tip of my brain because you use them in Monster Hunter against certain bosses, like
The ballista.
Ballista. Thank you. That's what it is. Yes, the Ballista. So dealing with that, and I don't have any footage of that. So you're dealing with that to start. I initially go into the boss fight there, the old Demon King, and I try him a handful of times and not really making a whole lot of progress. So I decide, okay, well, I'll go into the actual, like, dungeon around it, which I can't even remember the name of the area, but you got, like, those fire mages, and you have other just really obnoxious enemies. Oh, yeah, the poison guys, including the ones that, like, leap up in the air and then jump on you and then, like, beat the crap out of you, and just lots of annoying enemies. Then you have Black Knights, which I guess in this game the Black Knights respawn and the Silver Knights don't. So they reversed it from Dark Souls 1. But anyway, so spent a lot of time in this area. Took me a long time to get through it. But I did end up, after spending some time in there and just getting annoyed for a bit, I was looking at Fighting Cowboys walkthrough, and he recommended, you know, fighting Demon King pretty early. And so I just decided, okay, I'll go ahead and give it another try. Went in with Poison Mist, which isn't super powerful, but, you know, it still poisons the boss. The boss can take poison damage. It just doesn't do a lot, and it runs out after a little bit. So I did end up beating him before I finished up the rest of the Smoldering Lake. But then I, you know, went through the rest of it, had some issues here and there. The Black Knights didn't give me, well, I should say, one of the two Black Knights didn't give me too much trouble. The one with the axe gave me a lot more trouble because of the smaller area to fight him in. The one with the great sword did not give me as much trouble. I didn't have a whole lot of trouble. Oh, that's right. But I did have trouble with one of the NPCs that fights you with this huge great sword. The FUGS, something great sword. I can't remember the name of it. I have it. But anyway, so it's you know, I'm just gonna look at it. It's what is the name of that? I can't wield it yet. I'm not strong enough for it, but it is the Fume Ultra Great Sword. So that guy gave me a bunch of trouble for a while there, until I eventually was able to beat him. Of course, there's also lava in certain parts of that area as well, and just lots of annoying enemies. But at least I think that's probably still so far my least favorite area of the game I've been to. Let me think here. I feel like there was more to that area than that. I mean, really, the Ballista was the biggest, most annoying thing of all. But I spent a lot of time going back and forth through that. Oh, yeah, the Ballista, and then when I was in the underground area dealing with all of the... gosh, I cannot remember names of things right now. The basilisks. Because, you know, constantly blowing their smoke and turning you to stone. Sun came over the tops of the trees. Poof! Turned them all to stone. But anyway, so it was, you know, dealing with all that stuff, but I was able to get through. And then I went into the Irithyll City or whatever it's called. For some reason, like, once again, I'm having a hard time remembering the names of stuff because I've just spent too much time. But, you know, I went through, like, the initial part of that and then went into the prison area that's connected to it. And I spent a bunch of time going through that, and it took me quite a while to get through that as well. And that leads into the profaned capital, which I did as much as I could do there, basically, until I got to Yhorm the Giant, who is just, like, ridiculous. He's way too strong, and most of the encounters are going to be like the one that I'm going to play right now. And this encounter is just like, okay, I only tried it a handful of times because I just wasn't doing enough damage to really make it doable. And so, like, I go into the fight, you know, I maybe dodge his first attack, get a couple hits in, and then he slams down with his big giant pizza cutter, I guess is what it is. Like, and just, you know, like, I'm not getting anywhere with this fight. So eventually I step away, and I know that, like, at this point in the game, it's technically early to be fighting him, but I had gone through all the, you know, previous areas. So I just thought, oh, well, you know, theoretically I should be able to beat him. But even with putting, like, a dark element, which I think that's one of the things he's supposed to be weak against, that and, like, lightning. I put it on, you know, the sword, and I tried to fight him, and yeah, I was doing like 120 damage with a hit, but that's not anything for a life bar that huge. It just does, like, absolutely nothing. Without that dark element applied, I'm doing like 60 damage. And it's like, okay, this isn't even worth the trouble. So I decided to go back into the prison, and there's some other stuff in there that I hadn't quite gathered yet. Just a few, like, collectible items and just some general stuff that I had missed initially going through. And yeah, I hate that area. Most of all, I hate those guys with the brands, the ones that carry around, like,
Yes.
because they make your health bar shrink super tiny. And I do have toxic mist, so if I can get them with that, then I can usually poison them, and then if I, you know, create enough distance between me and them, they will die from it. But the problem is that more often than not, it was just not even, well, I shouldn't say more often than not, but there was just enough times to where they still managed to get me, and it was really annoying, especially because there's one room where there's like 10 of them just walking around in a circle over and over. Mm-hmm. And, like, I tried drawing them away so that I could take them out one at a time, and I was able to do it sometimes, but then there'd be, like, one hidden behind a wall that I didn't realize was there, and it would kill me. It'd be like, ah. But yeah, that area was quite annoying. So yeah, but then I went back to the whatever the name of that city is.
Irithyll?
Irithyll, thank you. That's what it's called, Irithyll. So I went back to Irithyll, and you went through. Thankfully, I mean, yeah, I definitely died to those tall guys a bunch, but I was able to eventually, you know, get all the way through to the front of the boss room. So I went and fought Pontiff initially. Like, I went in more or less blind. No, it was blind. I went in blind initially. I attempted the fight, and the first time I was able to summon someone because of the fact that I was embered, but I didn't have any embers after that, so I couldn't summon anybody. So, backing up a little bit, when I had put up my video, or the clip from last week's episode where I was talking about my experience with Dark Souls 3 so far, one of the comments I got on there was someone telling me that this guy Pontiff Sulyvahn, whatever, however you pronounce it, that he is basically like the boss that tends to be where people hit a wall most often. And so I was like going into it expecting, okay, this is going to be a difficult fight. It could end up being similar to Ornstein at Smough, where it was just something that really tested me to the point where I was just going to struggle with it. And so I went in expecting that I was going to be struggling a lot with this fight. And my initial time, because I had a summon who was helping me out, I mean, I was able to get a decent amount of damage on the boss, but ultimately he ended up killing the enemy, and because I wasn't, familiar with his patterns enough, I couldn't really do much of anything to get very far into the fight. So the person who had commented on the video telling me about this boss had said it's important to learn to parry for this fight. And so I went in expecting, after the first attempt, I looked up, okay, how do I parry? I saw a few videos and, people showing, and like they gave some tips that seemed to be pretty helpful. But the thing is that I am just so bad at parrying that the best I could do was parry his very first attack. And then from there, I was just having no success. And I think the biggest problem was that even when I managed to parry the first attack, either I was attacking too quickly or I wasn't getting close enough to actually do like the critical hit on him. Mm-hmm. And so then he'd get up immediately and start attacking me, and I'd die pretty quickly. And most of the attempts that you'll see in this video are basically just going to be me failing over and over and over. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about this because there's not a ton to say. But I tried a few different things. A while before this, I had tried out using the Guts Sword, as you have so lovingly called it, because I had never tried using it. And I just wanted to see, I like some of the moveset. I like the fact that you can block with it. I think that's great. But I'm not familiar enough with how it handles to where I felt like really comfortable with it. And on the flip side, like I know how obviously Zweihander handles, and I know that there's a couple other swords that have virtually the same moveset. So I went ahead and just went into the fight, and I don't know, I guess I attempted to use the Guts Sword for a little bit, and I think I only did it one or two times. Mostly I was trying to see if I could get off the special, because I was thinking, well, maybe if I could get off the spinning special thing as he was coming at me, it would hit him and then stop him from being able to do more damage, and then I'd be able to get in more hits after that. But that didn't really work. I just couldn't figure out the timing. So I gave up on trying to do that, and gave up on parrying after many, many attempts of, well, I shouldn't say many, but quite a few attempts of just having no success whatsoever with that. So then I decided instead to just go back to the good old Zweihander, and basically just went for two-handing. And the other thing is that I kind of realized that dodging his attacks was a lot easier than trying to parry. And so I figured, oh, okay, I'll go ahead and try that. So I get to this one attempt, and I'm doing great. Like, I am dodging most of his attacks. Not that I'm not getting hit. I'm definitely still getting hit, just not super often. But I'm doing a pretty good job of dodging the majority of his attacks, getting in hits where I can, and somehow managing to still be able to heal and everything. And I get him to his second phase. And second phase, like, since I had already watched someone do it with, all parries, I had at least some idea of what to expect, even though I knew there wasn't any way I was going to parry with, two-handing Zweihander. So I wasn't worried about trying to do that. I was just trying to, make sure I got the hits in that I needed to get in. And I'm doing pretty well. Get him down to the point where basically 2 more hits and he would have been dead, without question, because my R2 attack was doing like 600 damage to him, something like that. And even the R1 attack was doing over 400, was doing like 420 damage. So it's like I was doing a good amount of damage to him. But the problem is that, of course, as happens too often, I got too greedy. I could have healed myself, and I chose not to heal myself, and he killed me. So, fast forward quite a few more attempts. Usually, I think actually phase 2, I probably only got to like maybe a maximum of 10 times. I don't even think it was that many. I think it was probably closer to 5. But I get to my victory attempt where I'm doing a good job dodging. I'm not doing the best job getting hits in, but I'm getting them in, and I'm able to stay close enough to his body to where it's easier for me to heal as needed. And while I still get hit, I don't think I ever got super close to dying. I definitely got low on health, but not so low that I couldn't recover from it. Typically, I was able to figure out the right timing, and I'd down an Estus and then dodge immediately and just narrowly avoid his attack. And I'm getting through, get him to his halfway point to phase 2, and I remember, I need to back away from him because when he starts doing his transformation thing, it'll do a bunch of damage. So I do that, and I go into the fight. He's spawning his clone. I'm able to dodge a lot of their attacks. I'm just doing R2 attacks primarily, so doing back-to-back pancake slams, which they don't actually pancake him, but they do at least do a lot of damage, because that's doing around 600 damage per hit, and doing them basically back to back, and enough effort, and eventually I win. And unfortunately, my trying to force it so that it would show up right as I'm saying it didn't quite happen, but momentarily it will be showing the final victory blow, and there it is. Okay, but anyway, so but that's about as far as I've gotten. I cashed in my souls and went and started moving forward after that, and haven't gotten real far. I basically just started to get into the next area, and took out a couple of mage NPCs with one of them having clubs and the other one having something else, but I can't remember exactly what they are. But anyway, I basically just barely got past that, and I know Honor Londo's coming up very soon. I believe it's the next area that I basically just have to take an elevator down to get to, or up to, whichever it is. And yeah, that's been my Dark Souls journey this week. I haven't had nearly as much time to play, but I have had enough time to where I've been able to at least make progress. And I'm really glad I did not get stuck on this guy as long as I did with Ornstein and Smough, because that one, you remember how much I got stuck on that one for a while. And even on New Game Plus, I got stuck on him for a while, mostly because I decided to, that time, kill Smough first instead of killing Ornstein first. And I do want to go back to Dark Souls Remastered and fight. Well, I just want to do all of them again, maybe minus the DLC bosses. I haven't decided if I still want to do those, since I don't have to record them. But I am definitely at least thinking about that eventually, and I would like to mostly I just want to see okay, how would I do against Ornstein and Smough again if I go for Ornstein first this time, now that I have a better idea of what of how to kill him more easily and how to avoid Smough's attacks more easily. But anyway, none of that really matters. That's all I have. That's all the games. That's everything.
Okay, so yeah, Smoldering Lake is not a fun place to be. I mean, it's really you just go there because you have to, because you have the boss there, and
Yeah.
if you're trying to get like all the achievements, there are certain items you have to get, but no one really goes there because they want to go there.
Right.
So I'm glad that that was something you could quickly check off your list and get done. Now, for Yhorm the Giant, so he's a gimmick boss. That's the first thing you should know.
Oh,
is he's a gimmick
actually, I
boss.
do want to mention one thing about him real quick that I forgot to mention. I know that you're supposed to be able to, that if you get Sigurd's quest completed, or at least to a certain point, that he'll come in and help you fight, and then the fight is just a joke. But the problem is that the last time I attempted to fight him was before I had found Sigurd in Irithyll. And then even after I found him, I went back in and just tried to see if I could, if he would show up, and he didn't, which means I must still have to do more in his quest beforehand. So I will, I need to look up how to do the rest of that quest and whether or not it's something I can even complete yet, because I know that it can be a ridiculously easy fight if you have Sigurd, but if you don't have Sigurd, then it's a difficult fight because you could hardly do any damage, at least so far. But yeah.
Well, a couple things actually. I think if you've already gotten to Yhorm, if you haven't gotten Advanced Sigurd's quest far enough, because he's supposed to be in a dungeon in that area. Mm-hmm. So if he's not in the dungeon, then you probably can't advance it any further. I'm not certain yet. But you don't need him to actually make the gimmick work.
Okay.
There's actually a sword in the area. It's right on Yhorm's throne.
Yeah.
If you grab that sword and you use its ability, that's what makes it easy. Like Sigurd makes it easy because he has the sword himself, but you can have the sword yourself and use it on Yhorm.
Okay.
It's called Storm Ruler.
Yeah, I have the sword. Because the last time I tried going in, I went in with that sword, and maybe it was just because I didn't use it right when it was fully charged, but it didn't do like any damage to him at all.
Yeah, so like basically you charged up all the way, and then once it's fully charged, it deals a blow to Yhorm, and it brings him to his knees. And at that point, then it deals a massive damage to him, and it's just...
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. I will have to do that. Maybe even after the podcast tonight, I'll just jump in and do that, because it's like, it bugged me. It's like, how is it that I can get through this whole area without having too much difficulty with the enemies, other than, just how annoying they are? But then when I get to this boss, I can barely touch him. It's like, okay, that makes sense. All right, well then I will have to do that. That's very good to know.
Now, if you do feel like doing the effort, I'm not saying you have to or even want to. It is possible to kill Yhorm without it and just chip away at his health. I had too much time on my hands, so I took the time to do that. But it is possible to beat Yhorm without it, but it's just gonna take you probably 15 minutes to get through that.
Is that just using arrows or something?
No, just using your own sword. That's what I did.
I
I just used my sword, and I just kept on hitting him.
The problem was that it was just it was too hard to get the hits in enough, because it's I'd get maybe a couple hits in, and then he'd end up getting me. And yeah, I'm sure that if I worked hard enough, I could learn the patterns and avoid him. But yeah, I think I'll just do the gimmick method, because that sounds more fun.
I definitely agree with you about Irithyll dungeons, and that's probably one of my least favorite areas in the game. Possibly even more so than Farron's Keep, just because of the jailers that are able to, like you said, to whittle down your health bar. Now the thing is, they're only able to do that if they have sight of you. So if you go around a corner, they can't use their ability, which is something that I sort of used to take advantage of, is just to go around the corner, and then just as soon as they come, swing my sword and knock them down, and then just finish them while they're on the ground.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not fun at all. And I'm so thrilled to hear you mention Pontiff Sulyvahn because he was my wall, and he's my favorite wall just because of the fact that I agree with you that like I suck at parrying, and I know that parrying is a key to beat him, but because of the build that I make, it's not centered around parrying,
Right.
and I just had so much pride that I was like, I don't care about parrying. I'm going to do it. But like because I use the gut sword, it's just like it's very slow for that type of boss who's just able to constantly string combos, and so that boss probably took me about I think 39 attempts. Although I only beat him because I swallowed my pride, equipped a buckler, and then just like parried him and just managed to beat him that way. But I, even despite all that, I just love his design.
Yeah.
I love his abilities and his attacks, and also just like his background as well. Because I kind of wish that he had a cutscene, because in the actual story for the game, he's a central part as to why so many events actually happen within the game. And so I'm just like adding all that in together. I just really love him so much that I'm just like, yeah, I love this boss fight. He kicked my butt so many times, and he like handed me the most L's out of every boss in the game. But I just really enjoyed it so much. I think you're definitely in it for a treat once you reach Anorlando, because, well, I mean, without spoiling anything, you'll see an old friend from Dark Souls 1, who may or may not be there.
Well, I'm assuming you're talking about the giant blacksmith guy. No,
not necessarily.
Okay, fair enough.
I like I said, it's you'll see. It'll be a different experience this time around. But I look forward to you going there and seeing what happens.
But it's not Ornstein and Smough, right?
No.
I was like,
no.
Although, to be honest, I think that would probably be easier in this game. Well, I guess I should say, if they had a similar moveset, they'd be easier because dodging is easier in this game than it was in
That
Dark
is
Souls.
true. That is definitely true.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely glad that you are still making good progress and enjoying it. Yeah, I definitely look forward to hearing what happens next week with the progress that you've made.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was so satisfying though to just dodge the majority of Pontiff's attacks, because really this is one fight where you can actually dodge early, and most of the time it's going to be to your benefit. But the main thing is you have to dodge towards him. You have to dodge into him, because you have to try to stay as close to his body as possible. That seems to be the best way to avoid his attacks. And I mean, like, watching people parry him, they make it look so easy, and it should be easy. But the problem is my timing is just so far off on those, because like I always have a hard time telling how soon I need to parry. I'm used to games like Ghost of Tsushima and God of War, where the parry timing it's like just before they hit you. And in this, it's like, no, you have to do it surprisingly early, and it's really hard to figure out the right timing on that. So yeah, so that once I realized that dodging was easier for me, I'm glad I did that. And I think what helps is two of the rings I have equipped. So I have the one equipped that gives you additional invincibility frames, but it also lowers your defense. And then the other one is it increases your dexterity, and it makes you kind of like disappear when you roll. And I'm not sure if that like affects your hitbox or if it's just purely a visual thing. Like, I don't know exactly how all that works, but I just know that those two combined seem to help my dodging better. And so, yeah. But you'll get a chance to see what the fight looks like in the podcast, in the video version of the podcast, or in the clip that I'll post later on that'll have all that talk. So
yeah, and actually one last thing I will say about parrying is the fact that I don't even completely know what the window is myself, because you can get the parry to work, but still take damage. Oddly enough, it seems, because when I faced Pontiff, when I recorded the gameplay footage of when I actually beat him, and I went back and realized somehow I took damage, even though I wasn't actually hit during the fight, and then I realized, no, apparently somehow when I parried him, even though I performed it and I was able to counter him, he still was able to deal damage. So I don't know like what the exact window is, but like apparently even if unless you get it completely perfect, you can still take damage and get hit.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, like, I wish I could get the parrying down because it's so BA when you see someone do that. It's just like, okay, that's amazing. I love it. But it's just like I tried doing it, and the best I could do is get the very first attack parried, and then after that, it's just if I failed to get the critical hit on him, which I did in every instance where I managed to parry him, then he was just moving around me, and then I end up dying shortly after. But it's like I have no idea how many attempts it took me to actually beat that fight because so many of them were just super short. And I mean, this was one where like I didn't get nearly as frustrated with it, mostly just because it's like I knew that this was all me, that I just was bad at the parrying, like I hadn't quite gotten it down even after watching people do it. But ultimately, I'm glad I went with the dodging method. I mean, like I would love to learn how to parry it properly, but in this case, I was just glad that I was able to get through it. And I think it also didn't feel like it was as long because unlike in Dark Souls, the first time that I fought Ornstein and Smough, I didn't have a huge long run back. It was a much shorter run back. It's like all I have between the boss and me is two little enemies, which I technically could run past, but usually just killed. Like these two ghosts that were in the graveyard. And apart from that, it's like, okay, you got a couple of those tall guys, but they're easily avoidable if you just run straight to the boss door. And there's only like, I think one time maybe where they managed to hit me through the boss door. And otherwise they, couldn't get to me quickly enough. So, but yeah, good stuff. Still, I think I'm roughly about halfway through the game, including the DLC. So we'll see how everything goes. But, I'm still enjoying it. I haven't hit a wall yet. So I thought earlier when I was trying to do this fight earlier today, because I did a little bit on a break, I was starting to think that this was going to be a wall for me and that I was going to be taking a break for a while. But I just kept trying. And when I realized that the parrying wasn't going to work for me, then I tried dodging, and it seemed like that was working way better. And then the fact that I was able to get him down halfway with the dodging method seemed to be like, okay, this seems to be the right thing. And then I got him down to just 2 hits away from death. And it's like, okay, I can definitely do this. I just have to be a little bit smarter and less aggressive. And then, when I went back and was able to finally get the right run, it worked out pretty much the same way as the previous best run, except that I was more careful and was able to dodge more attacks, which made it easier for me to take him down faster. And I still get to use my beloved Zweihander. Even though I did get his flaming sword, the accursed sword or whatever it's called. I tried that out briefly, and I like it. It handles very similarly to Zweihander, minus the being able to set fire to itself and attack with that. But because of the fact that it uses up the FP or whatever the magic points are, it made it so that I couldn't use like my toxic mist, which is something that I like using a lot, since it does a lot more damage than poison and it takes effect a lot faster. But anyway, that's it. All right. Any other thoughts before we get into the news?
No, sir.